The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the crystalline chambers of Nexus Prime, where representatives from 47 species gathered in a state of unprecedented panic. The chamber's walls, normally pulsing with the calm blue light of diplomatic discourse, now flickered with urgent red warnings. Ambassador Zephyr of the Altarian Collective stood at the center podium, his 6 arms trembling as he delivered news that would shatter the very foundation of galactic civilization. Fellow counselors, Zephyr's voice echoed through the universal translators. We face an extinction-level threat unlike anything in our recorded history. The entity we have designated as the Void Swarm has consumed 17 star systems in the past lunar cycle. Our most advanced fleets have proven utterly ineffective against this menace. The assembled delegates erupted in a cacophony of fear-laden vocalizations. The insectoid karate clicked their mandibles in distress, while the gaseous nebulans dimmed to barely visible wisps. High Chancellor Korik of the Draconian Empire, a species that had dominated the galaxy for 3,000 years, slammed his scaled fist against his console. "This is impossible," Korik growled, his reptilian features contorted with disbelief. "Our plasma cannons can vaporize entire moons. Our quantum shields have withstood supernovas. How can some primitive biological mass defeat technologies that have kept peace in this galaxy for millennia?" Admiral Tesha of the Crystalline Federation materialized through her holographic projector, her mineral-based form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. "I've witnessed the destruction firsthand, High Chancellor. The Void Swarm doesn't simply destroy, it adapts. Every weapon we fire, every tactic we employ, it learns and evolves within minutes. Our energy weapons feed it. Our projectile weapons bounce harmlessly off its bioarmor. It's as if this entity was specifically designed to counter our technological advantages." The revelation sent another wave of terror through the assembly. For countless eons, the advanced species of the galaxy had prided themselves on their technological superiority, their sophisticated military doctrines, and their refined civilizations. They had evolved beyond the primitive concepts of biological warfare, hand-to-hand combat, and the crude strategies of lesser species. War, for them, had become an elegant dance of energy beams and quantum calculations. "What of the research conducted by the Zephonian Science Collective?" inquired Counselor Vex, her ethereal form flickering between dimensions. "Surely their predictive algorithms can provide insight into this threat's weaknesses?" Dr. Silex of the Zephonians stepped forward, his massive brain case pulsing with bioluminescent patterns of distress. "Our most advanced computational matrices have analyzed over 14 million tactical scenarios. In 99.7% of projections, the Void Swarm achieves complete galactic dominance within 6 standard months. The remaining scenarios..." He paused, his confidence wavering. "The remaining scenarios are deemed so improbable as to be statistically irrelevant." The chamber fell silent except for the ominous hum of the quantum processors calculating trajectory patterns of the approaching swarm. The silence was broken by the bitter laugh of Ambassador Quellen of the Hegemonic States, his cybernetic enhancements clicking as he processed the irony of their situation. "So this is how it ends," Quellen said, his artificial voice laden with resignation. "Not in glorious battle between equals, but consumed by a mindless hunger that turns our own strength against us. Perhaps this is the universe's way of humbling those who believe themselves masters of creation." "There must be something," pleaded Representative Yaira of the Peaceful Commune, her plant-like tendrils wilting with despair. "Some untapped resource, some forgotten technology, some alliance we haven't considered?" Chancellor Korik's expression grew contemplative, though tinged with reluctance. "There is one possibility, one that goes against every principle of galactic civilization, but desperate times." "Speak plainly, Korik," demanded Admiral Tesha. "The primitive worlds. The species we've deemed too backward for council membership. Some of them still engage in what they call conventional warfare, crude, biological, inefficient methods that we abandoned millennia ago." Korik's voice carried the distaste of a being discussing ancient barbarism. "If the Void Swarm has evolved to counter our advanced technologies, perhaps these primitive approaches might prove less predictable." The suggestion was met with a mixture of scorn and desperate consideration. Dr. Silex's brain patterns shifted to deep contemplation. From a theoretical standpoint, it's not entirely without merit. The Void Swarm has demonstrated rapid adaptation to energy-based weapons, quantum manipulation, and molecular engineering. But if it has never encountered truly primitive biological warfare, you're suggesting we ally with barbarians, spat Counselor Vex. Species that still use chemical propellants and metal projectiles? Beings that resolve conflicts through physical violence rather than civilized discourse. I'm suggesting we consider every option before accepting extinction, Korik replied grimly. The Altarian databases contain records of several species in the Outer Rim territories that still maintain what they call military forces. Most notably, there's a young species called humans from a system they call Sol. They're barely past their atomic age, but their entire recorded history is one continuous cycle of warfare and conflict. Ambassador Zephyr accessed the relevant files, his expression growing increasingly troubled as he reviewed the data. These humans, their planet is designated as Terra, third planet in a yellow star system. According to our surveys, they've never experienced true peace in their entire evolutionary history. They fight wars over resources, ideology, territory, even abstract concepts. They've developed thousands of different methods of killing each other. Disgusting, muttered Representative Yaira. What kind of species builds its entire civilization around violence? The kind that might survive what we cannot, admitted Dr. Silex reluctantly. Our analysis shows that human military doctrine includes concepts we've long abandoned: asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, psychological operations, and something they call combined arms coordination that integrates multiple primitive weapon systems simultaneously. Admiral Tesh's crystalline form dimmed as she processed this information. But they're so technologically inferior. Our most basic scout ships could destroy their entire fleet without effort. How could such primitives possibly succeed where we have failed? Perhaps that's precisely the point, Korik mused. We've become so advanced that we've forgotten the fundamental principles of survival that got our species to this level in the first place. These humans, they're still living those principles every day. The debate continued for hours, with most council members reluctant to even consider seeking aid from what they viewed as cosmic barbarians. However, as reports continued to arrive of the Void Swarm's inexorable advance, consuming the pride of galactic civilization with horrifying efficiency, the unthinkable began to seem merely improbable rather than impossible. It was High Strategist Varnock of the Military Coordination Directorate who finally voiced what many were beginning to think. If we approach these humans, what could we possibly offer them? They have nothing we need, and we've never acknowledged their existence. Why would they risk themselves for a galaxy that has ignored them? Because, said Korik slowly, if the Void Swarm isn't stopped, it will eventually reach their system too. And, unlike us, they won't have anywhere to run. He paused, his ancient eyes reflecting the weight of countless years of assumed superiority. Perhaps it's time we learned what it truly means to fight for survival. The council chamber erupted in heated debate once again, but now there was a different quality to the discussion. For the first time in galactic history, the most advanced civilizations in the universe were seriously considering asking for help from the very species they had dismissed as irrelevant. The irony was not lost on any of them. In their hour of greatest need, their salvation might come from the primitive warriors they had deemed unworthy of their notice. As the emergency session continued deep into the cycle, scouts were already being dispatched to the Outer Rim territories with a message that would have been unthinkable mere days before. The Galactic Council, masters of space and time, respectfully requested an audience with the humans of Terra. The very phrase felt foreign on their sophisticated tongues, but pride had become a luxury they could no longer afford. The fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of a species that still fought wars with metal and fire, beings who had turned warfare into an art form through necessity rather than choice. Whether humanity would answer the call, and whether their primitive ways could succeed where advanced technology had failed, remained to be seen. But, for the first time since the Void Swarm had emerged from the dark spaces between stars, there was something that might charitably be called hope flickering in the crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the observation deck of the U.S. Defiance, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath her as she processed the most bizarre briefing of her military career. The holographic display showed a sleek alien vessel maintaining a respectful distance from the Sol system's defense perimeter, its design unlike anything in human databases. After 43 years of service, from the Mars colonial wars to the asteroid belt rebellion, she thought she had seen everything the universe could throw at humanity. She was wrong. "Run that last part by me again, Commander," Chen said to her communications officer, her weathered face betraying none of the shock coursing through her system. Commander Rodriguez cleared his throat, still struggling to believe the words he was reading. The alien delegation identifies itself as representatives of something called the Galactic Council. They claim to speak for 47 different species across the galaxy. According to their message, they face an existential threat they call the Void Swarm, and he paused, checking his notes again. They're requesting military assistance from humanity. Military assistance, Chen repeated flatly. From us. Yes, ma'am. They specifically mentioned that our primitive warfare capabilities might be effective where their advanced technology has failed. Chen's executive officer, Colonel Marcus Webb, leaned against the observation window with his arms crossed. Webb had served through the Titan Siege and the Europa Underground, where human forces had perfected the art of fighting in impossible conditions with inadequate resources. So let me get this straight. These aliens, who've apparently been ignoring us for our entire existence, suddenly show up asking for help because we're good at killing things. That appears to be the situation, sir, Rodriguez confirmed. General Patricia Voss entered the observation deck, her stride carrying the confident authority of someone who had commanded human forces through 3 major conflicts. Behind her walked Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, and Professor Michael Chong, the military historian who had written the definitive work on human tactical evolution. "Admiral, I've been reviewing the technical data the aliens transmitted along with their request," Dr. Vasquez began, her tablet displaying streams of incomprehensible alien script. "Their technological capabilities are staggering. They manipulate energy at the quantum level, their ships can fold space-time for faster-than-light travel, and they have weapons that can destabilize stellar matter. And yet they're losing to something they describe as a biological entity," added Professor Chong. "I've been analyzing their tactical reports, and it's fascinating. This void swarm appears to be a collective organism that adapts to energy-based attacks within minutes. Their plasma weapons literally feed it. Their gravitational manipulators are absorbed and turned against them." Chun turned from the window, her expression thoughtful. "What's your assessment, Professor? Can we actually help them?" Chong pulled up a holographic display showing human military doctrine compared to the aliens' recorded strategies. "Admiral, these species have evolved so far beyond conventional warfare that they've forgotten its fundamental principles. Look at their battle formations, perfect geometric patterns designed for maximum energy efficiency. No redundancy, no chaos, no unpredictability. They fight like computers because, in many ways, that's what they've become. While we fight like humans," Webb observed. "Exactly. Messy, chaotic, adaptable. We use combined arms tactics they've never seen, mixing kinetic weapons with chemical explosives, biological agents with electronic warfare. Our entire military philosophy is based on doing whatever works, regardless of how inelegant it might seem." General Voss activated the holographic display, showing the approaching alien vessel. "I've been in communication with Earth Command. They're as shocked as we are, but the consensus is clear. If this void swarm is as dangerous as the aliens claim, it will eventually reach Sol. We might as well fight it alongside allies rather than facing it alone. Assuming these aliens actually become allies," Webb pointed out. "Their message was polite enough, but, reading between the lines, they clearly consider us primitives who might be useful cannon fodder." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis. "Actually, Colonel, I think you might be underestimating their desperation. The biological samples they've transmitted show evidence of the void swarm's adaptive capabilities. This thing learns from every encounter, evolves its defenses, improves its attacks. For species that rely heavily on technological superiority, it represents the perfect counter-evolution. Which brings us to the question," Chen said, How do we respond? Do we invite them aboard? Do we meet on neutral ground? Do we tell them to go to hell? Before anyone could answer, the communication system crackled to life. Admiral Chun, this is Captain Lisa Park aboard the U.S. Interceptor. We've got multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace throughout the system. The alien vessel is hailing us with emergency protocols. Chun moved quickly to the communication console. Put them through, Captain. The voice that emerged was clearly artificial, processed through translation systems. But the urgency was unmistakable. Human Admiral, this is Ambassador Zephyr of the Altarian Collective. The Void Swarm has accelerated its approach vector. Our scouts report it will reach the galactic core within 2 of your weeks. We respectfully request immediate audience to discuss potential cooperation. They're panicking, Webb observed quietly. Whatever's coming has them terrified. Chun made her decision with the speed that had kept her alive through decades of combat. Ambassador Zephyr, this is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Space Command. You may dock with our station for preliminary discussions. Be advised that any hostile action will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. Understood, Admiral. We come seeking alliance, not conquest. Our survival may depend upon your primitive wisdom. The communication ended, and the observation deck fell silent as the implications sank in. Chun looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage in the most unexpected way possible, not as conquerors or explorers, but as the cavalry riding to rescue civilizations that had existed since before humanity discovered fire. Well, Webb said finally, this should be interesting. 2 hours later, Chun found herself in Conference Room Alpha, facing the most bizarre diplomatic gathering in human history. Ambassador Zephyr was a towering figure with multiple limbs and skin that shifted colors with his emotional state, currently a deep purple that, according to Dr. Vasquez's hurried cultural briefing, indicated extreme stress. Accompanying him were a crystalline being that communicated through light patterns and a creature that appeared to be made of living energy contained within a mechanical shell. Admiral Chun, Zephyr began, his artificial voice carrying overtones of desperate hope. We thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Allow me to be direct. Our species have mastered technologies your people can barely comprehend, yet we face extinction at the hands of an enemy that turns our greatest strengths into weaknesses. Chun had prepared for this moment, drawing upon decades of experience negotiating with hostile factions, desperate refugees, and everyone in between. Ambassador, with respect, let's establish some ground rules. You're asking for our help, but you're also clearly viewing us as inferiors. If you want human assistance, you're going to have to accept that our primitive methods come with primitive command structures. The crystalline being, introduced as Admiral Tesha, pulsed with what Chun hoped were non-threatening patterns. We acknowledge your species' expertise in warfare. Our analysis suggests that human tactical doctrine contains elements our enemies have never encountered. Because you've never encountered them either, Webb interjected. When was the last time any of your species fought a ground war? Used combined arms tactics? Employed deception, misdirection, or what we call human wave attacks? Zephyr's color shifted to a confused green. Ground warfare is inefficient. Why risk personnel in surface combat when orbital bombardment is more precise? And deception, our advanced sensor systems make concealment nearly impossible among civilized species. Professor Chong leaned forward. That's exactly the problem. You've become so advanced that you've forgotten the chaos factor. War isn't about efficiency, it's about survival. Sometimes the most irrational action is the most effective because your enemy can't predict it. The energy being, designated as Strategist Nullic, spoke through harmonic frequencies that the translator rendered as a melodious voice. Show us these chaotic methods. Our models indicate the Void Swarm will reach this system within 15 solar rotations. We require practical demonstration of human tactical superiority. Chun smiled grimly. That can be arranged. But, first, I need to understand exactly what we're fighting. Show me everything you know about this Void Swarm. The next several hours were spent in intensive briefings as the aliens shared their accumulated data on humanity's new enemy. The Void Swarm was revealed to be a collective organism of staggering complexity. Billions of individual creatures operating as a single intelligence, consuming matter and energy to fuel its expansion across the galaxy. It had evolved natural defenses against energy weapons, gravitational manipulation, and quantum disruption techniques. Most terrifyingly, it learned from every encounter, becoming more effective with each victory. It's like fighting evolution itself, Dr. Vasquez observed after reviewing the biological data. Every adaptation makes it stronger. Then, we don't let it adapt, Chen said simply. We hit it with everything at once. Kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, biological agents, electronic warfare, nuclear devices, and good old-fashioned human unpredictability. Ambassador Zephyr's color shifted to skeptical orange. Admiral, our plasma cannons can generate temperatures exceeding those found in stellar cores. Your kinetic weapons throw metal projectiles. How can such primitive tools succeed where our advanced technology has failed? Because, Webb said with a predatory grin, sometimes a rock thrown hard enough can kill a god. And humans have spent thousands of years learning how to throw rocks really, really hard. As the briefings continued and plans began to take shape, it became clear that this alliance would challenge everything both sides thought they knew about warfare, technology, and the nature of survival itself. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were about to receive a crash course in human military doctrine, while humanity prepared to fight an enemy that defied everything they understood about biology and physics. The stage was set for the most unlikely partnership in galactic history, forged in desperation and tempered by necessity. Whether human chaos could triumph over cosmic evolution remained to be seen, but for the first time since the crisis began, there was reason to hope that the galaxy might survive what was coming. The first joint tactical exercise between human and alien forces took place in the Kepler 442 system, 3 days out from the Void Swarm's projected path. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the newly christened UES Terra's Fury as the most unprecedented military cooperation in galactic history unfolded before her eyes. Around her flagship, vessels from a dozen different species maintained formations that would have been impossible to imagine just weeks ago. The draconian dreadnought Stellar Dominion hung like a crystalline mountain in space, its quantum weapon arrays gleaming with barely contained energy. Beside it, the Altarian collective ship Harmonic Convergence pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as its crew coordinated through neural links. The Zephonian science vessel Infinite Calculation bristled with sensor arrays more advanced than anything in human technology. And scattered throughout this alien armada were the ships of humanity's hastily assembled expeditionary force. Rough, angular vessels that looked primitive next to their alien counterparts, but carried weapons and tactics that had kept humanity alive through centuries of conflict. Admiral, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station. All human vessels report ready for exercise Prometheus. The alien ships are having some difficulty adjusting to our coordination protocols. Chen's smile was grim. 3 days of joint training had revealed the fundamental differences between human and alien military doctrine in stark detail. The aliens fought with mathematical precision, their movements calculated to maximize energy efficiency and minimize casualties. Humans fought to win, regardless of the cost in elegance or resources. Ambassador Zephyr, Chen addressed the alien diplomat stationed on her bridge. Are your forces prepared for the exercise? Zephyr's skin had settled into a nervous yellow hue. After 72 hours of observing human military preparations, the Altarian ambassador had developed a healthy respect for humanity's capacity for controlled chaos. Admiral, our fleet commanders express concern about the unpredictability of human tactical doctrine. Your proposed strategy appears to violate several fundamental principles of warfare. Good, Chen replied. If our strategy makes sense to advanced military minds, it'll make sense to the Void Swarm too. The whole point is to do things that shouldn't work, but do anyway. Colonel Webb, serving as liaison between human and alien forces, highlighted the exercise parameters on the main display. We've created a simulation environment based on the Void Swarm's documented capabilities. The target is a collective organism with adaptive defenses, rapid learning capability, and the ability to turn energy weapons against attackers. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as xenobiological warfare specialist, added her analysis. The simulated void swarm will react to our attacks exactly as the real entity has in previous encounters. If we can overcome these defenses in simulation, we might have a chance against the actual threat. Professor Chang pulled up tactical diagrams showing the exercise battleground. The alien fleets will engage first, using their standard protocols. This should allow the simulated void swarm to adapt to their energy-based weapons and defensive strategies. Then, the human fleet will implement what we're calling sequential chaos protocol. Admiral Tesha's crystalline form materialized through holographic projection from her flagship. Admiral Chun, our analysis suggests that your proposed tactics have only a 23% probability of success. Why do you proceed with such poor odds? Because, Chun replied, 23% is infinitely better than 0%, which is what you've been achieving with conventional methods. The exercise began with textbook alien precision. The draconian dreadnought opened with a devastating plasma bombardment that would have vaporized any conventional target. The Altarian collective ship followed with quantum disruption pulses designed to destabilize molecular bonds. The Zephonian vessel provided targeting data through sensor sweeps more accurate than anything in human arsenal. The simulated void swarm absorbed it all. Within minutes, the artificial entity had adapted to the plasma bombardment, turning the energy to fuel its own growth. The quantum disruptions were analyzed, countered, and eventually redirected back at the attacking vessels. The precise sensor sweeps provided the void swarm with detailed information about its attacker's capabilities and weaknesses. Simulation parameters indicate complete adaptive evolution, reported the Zephonian science officer. The target entity is now immune to all energy-based weapons and has developed countermeasures for our defensive systems. Perfect, Chen said, to the confusion of every alien on the bridge. Now we show them what chaos looks like. All human vessels implement sequential chaos protocol. Remember, no patterns, no predictability, no mercy. What followed challenged every principle of civilized warfare that the galaxy had developed over millennia. The human fleet attacked in waves, but each wave used completely different tactics, weapons, and approaches. The first wave consisted of kinetic bombardment, simple metal projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. No energy signatures for the void swarm to absorb, no quantum effects to analyze, just raw kinetic force that punched through adaptive bioarmor through sheer momentum. Before the simulated entity could fully analyze this primitive attack method, the second wave hit with chemical explosives, fusion warheads that created massive pressure waves, and thermal effects unlike anything in the alien arsenal. The void swarm began adapting to the nuclear detonations just as the third wave arrived with something that had never been seen in galactic warfare: biological weapons. Are those viruses? Ambassador Zephyr asked in horror as human ships deployed specially engineered pathogens designed to disrupt cellular processes. Modified influenza strains, actually, Dr. Vasquez replied cheerfully. Engineered to target the specific cellular structures we've observed in void swarm tissue samples. They won't kill it, but they'll definitely give it something to think about. The fourth wave employed electronic warfare, not the sophisticated quantum jamming the aliens used, but crude electromagnetic pulses and signal interference that disrupted the void swarm's coordination in ways its adaptive systems couldn't predict. The fifth wave brought conventional ballistic weapons, bullets, missiles, and artillery that operated on principles abandoned by galactic civilization eons ago. But it was the sixth wave that truly demonstrated human tactical philosophy. Instead of maintaining safe distances like the alien fleets, human vessels closed to point-blank range and began boarding actions. Marines in powered armor fought their way into the simulated void swarm using weapons that ranged from plasma rifles to combat knives, engaging in hand-to-hand combat that no civilized species had contemplated for thousands of years. This is madness, breathed Admiral Tesha as human soldiers literally punched, stabbed, and shot their way through the simulation environment. This is warfare, Chen corrected. Our enemies can adapt to our weapons, our tactics, even our strategies. But they can't adapt to the simple fact that humans refuse to quit fighting, even when fighting makes no logical sense. The simulation concluded with the void swarm entity fragmented and neutralized, its adaptive systems overwhelmed by the sheer variety and chaos of human tactical doctrine. The artificial intelligence running the simulation registered a successful mission completion, but also flagged numerous tactical violations and efficiency concerns. Exercise complete, reported Commander Torres. Simulated void swarm eliminated with acceptable casualties across all human vessels. Acceptable casualties? Questioned strategist Nullick through harmonic frequencies that rang with confusion. Your forces sustained significant damage from close-range combat. Our analysis indicates this was entirely preventable through proper standoff engagement. Colonel Webb laughed, a sound that seemed to disturb several alien species. That's the point. We took damage because we were willing to take damage. Sometimes winning means being willing to lose more than your enemy thinks you can afford. The post-exercise debriefing revealed just how fundamentally different human and alien approaches to warfare truly were. The aliens fought to minimize losses and maximize efficiency, treating each engagement as a problem to be solved through superior technology and tactical precision. Humans fought to achieve objectives regardless of cost, viewing each engagement as a test of will that could be won through determination, adaptability, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to surrender. Your tactics are undeniably effective, admitted High Chancellor Korik through communication from his flagship, but they are also incredibly wasteful and chaotic. How do you maintain unit cohesion when every attack wave operates independently? Because we trust each other, Shin replied simply. Every human commander knows the mission objective and has the authority to achieve it however they think best. We don't need perfect coordination because we have perfect trust. Dr. Silex's massive brain case pulsed with confused bioluminescent patterns as he tried to process this concept. But without centralized tactical coordination, how do you prevent units from interfering with each other? How do you ensure optimal resource allocation? How do you maintain strategic oversight? We don't, admitted Professor Chong. Human military doctrine accepts a certain amount of chaos and inefficiency in exchange for adaptability and unpredictability. Our enemies can't counter tactics we haven't planned ourselves. The implications of this philosophy were staggering to species that had spent millennia perfecting the mathematics of warfare. The idea that deliberate chaos could be more effective than calculated precision challenged everything they thought they knew about military science. As the combined fleet prepared for real combat against the approaching void swarm, alien commanders struggled to adapt their thinking to human methods, while human officers worked to coordinate with allies whose technological capabilities bordered on the miraculous. The exercise had proven that cooperation was possible, but it had also revealed just how different these species truly were. The stage was set for the greatest test in galactic history, whether the chaos of human warfare could triumph over the adaptive perfection of the void swarm, and whether the galaxy's most advanced civilizations could learn to fight like the primitives they had long dismissed. Time was running out, and soon theory would meet reality in the crucible of actual combat. The void swarm emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made manifest, a writhing mass of biomechanical horror that stretched across light years of space. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Terra's Fury, watching through enhanced sensors as humanity faced its first truly alien enemy. The entity defied every classification system in human xenobiology, a collective organism that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "My God," whispered Dr. Vasquez, her voice barely audible as she processed the sensor data. "It's magnificent and terrifying. The electromagnetic signatures alone suggest neural activity on a galactic scale. We're not fighting a creature, we're fighting a living ecosystem." The combined fleet hung in battle formation at the edge of the Zirian system, 47 alien vessels, and 23 human ships preparing for what could very well be the final battle for galactic civilization. Around them, the debris fields of previous encounters bore silent testimony to the void swarm's inexorable advance. Shattered hulks of the galaxy's finest warships, their quantum armor and energy shields having proven worse than useless. "Fleet status report," Chen ordered, her voice carrying the calm authority that had seen her through decades of impossible odds. All human vessels report ready for combat, Commander Torres replied. Admiral, I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies within the swarm formation. Whatever that thing is, it's manipulating space-time on a scale I've never seen. Ambassador Zephyr, his skin now a constant purple of barely controlled fear, provided additional sensor analysis. Admiral Chan, our scans confirm the entity has grown significantly since our last encounter. It has incorporated the technology and biological matter from 17 conquered systems. The adaptation rate is accelerating. Through the tactical display, Chen could see the Void Swarm's true form for the first time. It appeared as a massive cloud of interconnected organisms, each the size of a space station, linked by energy networks that pulsed with intelligence. Smaller entities, though still larger than most human vessels, move through the formation like antibodies in a bloodstream, their purpose clearly defensive. High Chancellor Korik, Chen addressed the Draconian Fleet Commander. Are your forces ready to begin Phase 1 of our attack plan? Korik's reply carried millennia of military pride mixed with newfound humility. The Draconian Empire stands ready, Admiral. Though I confess, deliberately exposing our fleets to enemy analysis runs counter to every instinct developed over 3,000 years of warfare. That's exactly why it will work, Colonel Webb interjected from his position at the tactical station. The swarm expects rational behavior from advanced civilizations. We're going to give it exactly what it wants to analyze, then hit it with everything it doesn't expect. Professor Chang highlighted the battle plan on the main display. Phase 1 establishes the pattern, conventional alien tactics using energy weapons and quantum manipulation. The Void Swarm will adapt, creating defensive measures and counterattack protocols. Phase 2 breaks the pattern with coordinated chaos. Admiral Tesh's crystalline form flickered with what Chun had learned to recognize as determination. The Crystalline Federation fleet is prepared for sacrifice, Admiral Chun. If our destruction helps your forces succeed, we accept this fate willingly. No one's getting destroyed on my watch, Chun replied firmly. We're all going home together, or we're all dying together. There's no middle ground here. The battle commenced with alien precision that would have been beautiful under other circumstances. The Draconian dreadnoughts opened with a coordinated plasma barrage that lit up space like miniature stars, their quantum-focused beams carrying enough energy to sterilize entire planets. The Altarian collective ships followed with harmonic resonance weapons that could shatter molecular bonds across vast distances. The Zephonian science vessels provided real-time tactical analysis, while Crystalline Federation forces deployed gravitational manipulators that twisted space itself into weapons. For 30 minutes, the combined alien fleet demonstrated the pinnacle of galactic military science. Their attacks were coordinated to the microsecond, their energy expenditure optimized for maximum efficiency, their formations textbook examples of advanced tactical doctrine. Against any conventional enemy, the display would have been decisive. The Void Swarm absorbed it all with terrifying efficiency. Chun watched as the entity's biomechanical components began adapting in real time, developing new armor configurations that deflected plasma beams, growing resonance dampeners that neutralized harmonic weapons, and evolving gravitational shields that turned the aliens' own space manipulation against them. Within an hour, the Void Swarm had not only adapted to every weapon in the alien arsenal, but had begun incorporating their technologies into its own offensive systems. Adaptive evolution complete, reported the Zephonian tactical analysis. All conventional weapons now ineffective. The entity is beginning counterattack protocols using modified versions of our own technologies. Perfect, Chen said, ignoring the shocked gasps from her alien allies. All human vessels, implement Operation Broken Arrow. Remember, chaos, violence, and absolutely no pattern recognition. What followed was unlike anything ever recorded in galactic military history. The human fleet abandoned all pretense of civilized warfare and engaged in what could only be described as systematic madness. Rather than maintaining formation integrity, human ships scattered across the battlefield in seemingly random patterns, each vessel operating independently while somehow maintaining perfect tactical coordination. The U.S. Defiance led the first assault wave, but instead of firing energy weapons, it launched a spread of kinetic impactors, simple tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds. The Void Swarm's adaptive systems, evolved to handle energy-based attacks, were caught completely off guard by the raw kinetic force. Before the entity could begin adapting to the new threat, the second wave struck. The UES Retribution deployed chemical weapons on a scale that made the alien observers recoil in horror. Nuclear warheads detonated throughout the swarm formation, followed immediately by biological agents designed to disrupt cellular processes. The Void Swarm's adaptation systems, already struggling to analyze kinetic weapons, were overwhelmed by the addition of completely different threat vectors. "They're using biological warfare," Ambassador Zephyr said in shock. "How is this possible? Biological weapons have been banned by galactic convention for over 2 millennia. Because they're messy, unpredictable, and impossible to contain," Dr. Vasquez replied grimly. "Which makes them perfect against an enemy that adapts to clean, predictable attacks." The third wave introduced electronic warfare that would have been considered primitive by galactic standards. Crude electromagnetic pulses, and signal jamming that nevertheless disrupted the Void Swarm's neural network in ways that sophisticated quantum interference had failed to achieve. The entity's coordination began breaking down as its communication systems struggled with interference patterns they had never encountered. But it was the fourth wave that truly demonstrated humanity's unique approach to warfare. Instead of maintaining safe engagement distances, human vessels closed to point-blank range and initiated boarding actions. Marines in powered armor fought their way into the Void Swarm's biomechanical components, engaging in hand-to-hand combat that no galactic species had contemplated for millennia. "This is insane," Admiral Tesha transmitted as she watched human soldiers literally punching their way through alien bioarmor. "They're fighting inside a hostile organism using melee weapons. They're fighting to win," Shin corrected. "The swarm can adapt to weapons and tactics, but it can't adapt to the human refusal to accept defeat." The boarding actions revealed humanity's most terrifying advantage, their willingness to engage in personal combat against impossible odds. While the Void Swarm's adaptation systems struggled to categorize and counter kinetic weapons, chemical attacks, biological warfare, and electronic interference, human Marines were systematically destroying critical systems from the inside using methods that ranged from high-tech plasma rifles to ancient combat knives. Sergeant Maria Santos, leading Alpha Team through the neural core of a swarm component, reported over tactical communications while firing her assault rifle at biomechanical defenders. Target appears to be some kind of processing center, deploying thermite charges on what looks like the main nerve cluster. Confirmed, Alpha Team, responded tactical control. Beta and Gamma teams are hitting similar targets in adjacent sections. Remember, maximum damage, minimum pattern. The explosions that followed sent shock waves through the entire Void Swarm formation as critical neural networks were severed by the most primitive of weapons. Chemical explosives planted by humans willing to fight at arm's reach. The entity's coordination began fragmenting as its distributed intelligence lost the ability to process information from damaged sectors. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres with barely contained excitement, "we're reading massive system failures throughout the swarm formation. Their adaptive responses are becoming increasingly erratic." Through the main display, Chun could see the truth of the report. The Void Swarm, which had devoured entire star systems with methodical efficiency, was now writhing in apparent confusion as its adaptation mechanisms failed to cope with the sheer variety and chaos of human attack methods. Every time the entity began developing countermeasures for one threat, 3 more completely different attacks would strike simultaneously. All alien vessels, Chun broadcast across all frequencies, join the attack. Use everything you've got. They can't adapt to coordinated chaos. Hit them with your most advanced weapons while they're trying to process our primitive ones. The alien fleets, inspired by humanity's impossible success, resumed their attack with renewed vigor. Plasma beams that had been useless an hour ago now found their targets as the Void Swarm's defensive systems struggled to prioritize threats. Quantum weapons that had been adapted against began scoring devastating hits as the entity's attention was focused on the chaotic human assault. For the first time since the crisis began, the Void Swarm was losing. The entity that had consumed 17 star systems was being systematically dismantled by a combination of alien technology and human determination, advanced science and primitive warfare, mathematical precision and deliberate chaos. But the battle was far from over, and the Void Swarm still had resources that none of them had anticipated. The Void Swarm's death throes were more terrifying than its living assault had been. As the entity's neural networks collapsed under the coordinated chaos of human warfare and alien technology, it began to fragment in ways that defied every model of biological behavior. Each severed section became a separate organism, smaller but more desperate, lashing out with weapons cobbled together from consumed technologies and pure evolutionary fury. Admiral Chun watched from the bridge of the Terra's fury as space around them became a nightmare of twisted biology and corrupted physics. The swarm's adaptive capabilities, no longer constrained by central coordination, were evolving in random directions, creating threats that shouldn't have been possible according to any known science. Admiral, we're reading massive energy buildups throughout the fragmented sections, Commander Torres reported, his voice tight with stress. Whatever these things are becoming, they're preparing for something big. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis station, her face pale with realization. Admiral, I think the Void Swarm is attempting emergency reproduction. The biological signatures suggest it's converting its remaining mass into spores, thousands of them. If even a few survive and escape, they could seed new swarms throughout the galaxy. The tactical display showed the horrifying truth of her words. The dying fragments of the Void Swarm were launching pods in every direction, each one containing enough genetic material to eventually grow into a new collective organism. The combined fleet had won the battle, but they were in danger of losing the war to an enemy that refused to accept defeat. All vessels, emergency intercept patterns, Chen ordered. Nothing gets past us. Nothing escapes this system. High Chancellor Korik's voice crackled over communications from his damaged dreadnought. Admiral Chun, our weapons are nearly depleted. The Draconian fleet can maintain pursuit for perhaps another hour before we must withdraw for resupply. Similar reports came from across the Allied fleet. Admiral Tesh's crystalline ships were showing fractures from the prolonged engagement. The Altarian collective vessels had exhausted their harmonic resonance chambers. The Zephonian science ships had overloaded their quantum processors calculating targeting solutions for chaotic human tactics. But the human fleet, battered and burning though they were, continued their relentless pursuit of the fleeing spores. The UES Defiance, her hull scarred by bioacid and her armor melted from energy feedback, chased down 3 spore pods with kinetic weapons that never ran out of ammunition as long as there was metal to accelerate. The UES Retribution, leaking atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches, intercepted 2 more pods with nuclear warheads that turned the escape attempts into brief new stars. Admiral, Colonel Webb reported from his coordination post. Human vessels are reporting critical supply shortages across the board. We're down to emergency reserves on everything except determination. Then, determination will have to be enough, Chen replied grimly. How many spore pods are still active? 47 confirmed launches, Torres replied. We've intercepted 31. The remaining 16 are accelerating beyond our intercept capabilities. It was Ambassador Zephyr who provided the solution, his skin shifting to colors that had no translation in human experience, a mixture of desperate hope and terrified inspiration. Admiral Chun, there is one possibility. The Zephonian Science Collective has been developing experimental quantum entanglement weapons. Theoretical only, untested, potentially catastrophic to any vessel that deploys them. Dr. Silex's massive brain case pulsed with rapid calculations as he processed the proposal. The quantum entanglement torpedoes could theoretically create localized space-time distortions that would trap the spore pods in temporal loops. But the energy requirements would likely destroy any ship that fires them. Do it, Chen said without hesitation. Admiral, Zephyr protested. The calculations suggest a 97% probability of catastrophic failure for any vessel attempting deployment. The quantum feedback could tear a ship apart at the molecular level. Then, we better make sure it's worth it, Chen replied. She activated fleet communications. All vessels, This is Admiral Chun. The alien science ships have a weapon that can stop the remaining spore pods, but it requires a ship to serve as a delivery platform. Given the risks involved, I'm calling for volunteers. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every human ship in the fleet volunteered simultaneously, their captains speaking over each other in their eagerness to accept what appeared to be a suicide mission. The alien observers listened in stunned silence as humanity once again demonstrated their fundamental difference from every other species in the galaxy. "This is Captain Rodriguez aboard the UES Interceptor," came one voice. "We've taken heavy damage, but our quantum systems are still operational. We can serve as firing platform." "Negative, Interceptor," replied Captain Park from the UES Salvation. "Our ship is already critically damaged. We're the logical choice for this mission." "Both of you stand down," interrupted Captain Morrison from the heavy cruiser UES Inevitable. "We've got the most robust quantum shielding. We're taking this one." Chun felt a pride so fierce it threatened to overwhelm her tactical objectivity. After centuries of being dismissed as primitive barbarians, humanity was preparing to sacrifice their finest vessels to save a galaxy that had never acknowledged their existence. "Captain Morrison, prepare your vessel for quantum torpedo deployment. All other ships will provide escort and covering fire." The next 20 minutes were a masterclass in human tactical coordination under impossible circumstances. The damaged fleet rearranged itself into a protective formation around the UES Inevitable as the heavy cruiser prepared for a mission that would almost certainly destroy her. Zephonian scientists worked frantically to modify their experimental weapons for human deployment systems, while human engineers made modifications that challenged the laws of physics. Dr. Vasquez coordinated the technical integration between human and alien systems, her expertise in xenobiology proving crucial for interfacing human technology with Zephonian quantum mechanics. "Admiral, the torpedo modifications are complete, but the energy requirements are even higher than initially calculated. The Inevitable will need to discharge her entire power core simultaneously." "Understood," Chun replied. "Captain Morrison, are you ready for deployment?" Morrison's voice carried the calm professionalism of a career officer who had accepted the probability of death in service to something greater than himself. "Ready for launch, Admiral. It's been an honor serving with you all." The UES Inevitable accelerated toward the fleeing spore pods. Her engines pushed far beyond safe operating parameters as she raced to intercept the enemy's final escape attempt. Behind her, the combined fleet provided covering fire against the smaller swarm fragments that were still trying to protect their reproductive pods. "Quantum torpedoes armed and ready," Morrison reported as his ship closed to optimal firing range. "Targeting solutions locked on all remaining spore pods." "Admiral, tell Earth that humanity doesn't surrender." "Tell them yourself when you get home, Captain," Chun replied, though they both knew the odds of survival were negligible. The UES Inevitable fired all 6 quantum torpedoes simultaneously, the experimental weapons creating tears in space-time itself as they raced toward their targets. The feedback was immediate and devastating. The heavy cruiser's hull began to warp and twist as quantum forces tore at her molecular structure. Emergency bulkheads collapsed, her crew compartments vented atmosphere, and her power core overloaded in a cascade of failures that should have destroyed any conventional vessel. But the torpedoes found their marks. Each spore pod was caught in a localized temporal loop that trapped it in a moment of perpetual deceleration, unable to continue its flight or adapt to the quantum distortions holding it captive. The Void Swarm's final gambit had failed, its last hope for survival frozen in quantum amber. "All targets neutralized," reported the Inevitable's tactical officer through communications that were breaking up as the ship's systems failed. "Repeat, all spore pods contained." Mission accomplished. The UES Inevitable died as she had lived, in service to humanity and the principles they refused to abandon even in the face of impossible odds. But her sacrifice had achieved something that advanced alien technology could not: the complete destruction of an enemy that had threatened to consume the entire galaxy. In the aftermath of the battle, as rescue ships worked frantically to save what crew they could from the Inevitable and other damaged vessels, the galaxy found itself facing a new reality. The species they had dismissed as primitive barbarians had not only saved galactic civilization but had done so using methods that challenged everything the advanced races thought they knew about warfare, technology, and the nature of survival itself. Ambassador Zephyr stood on the bridge of the Terra's Fury, his skin cycling through colors that expressed emotions his species had never needed to develop: gratitude, humility, and something approaching awe. Admiral Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Council and all member species, I offer our deepest thanks. Humanity has proven itself worthy of more than we ever imagined possible. Chun looked out at the debris field where the Void Swarm had died, where human ships had sacrificed themselves alongside alien vessels in defense of a galaxy that was only now beginning to understand what humanity truly represented. Ambassador, we didn't do this for recognition or reward. We did it because it needed to be done. Yes, Zephyr replied softly. And that may be the most remarkable thing of all. The battle was over, but its implications would echo through galactic civilization for millennia to come. Humanity had not only saved the galaxy, they had fundamentally changed it. The advanced species that had once dismissed human warfare as primitive brutality now sought to understand the principles that had made victory possible when their own sophisticated methods had failed. In the months that followed, the Galactic Council would extend full membership to humanity, not as junior partners, but as equals whose unique perspective on conflict and survival had proven invaluable. Human military advisors would be stationed throughout alien fleets, while human civilian consultants would help redesign military academies across dozens of species. But, perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would shape its future for generations. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from advancing beyond primitive methods, but from understanding when those methods are exactly what the situation requires. In a universe full of advanced technologies and sophisticated strategies, sometimes victory belongs to those willing to pick up a rock and throw it hard enough to shatter the impossible. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors or supplicants, but as the teachers that advanced civilizations never knew they needed. And in teaching the galaxy how to fight, they had also taught it how to survive.